Welcome back. Today we are going to work on making some cards using some rub-ons. I'm going to show you the cards that I made, and then I'll show you the packaging for the 12 by 12 sheet of rub-ons that I got. I got it in my 49 on Market mystery box last year, and I didn't know what to do with them. I'm not really a scrapbooker, so I didn't know for sure what I should do with them, so I decided I was going to make some cards with them. So that is what I've done, and we're gonna work on making the last card today together, but I wanted to show you the ones that I've made so far. So all I have done is taken some glue on the back of that one, is taken a card piece, a card front that is 1/8 of an inch smaller than the 5.5 and 4 1/4. So it's just 1/8 of an inch smaller. So if you use like a Tim Holtz cutting board, it would be in between the 5.5 and the 5 1/4. You're going to cut, your paper will go right there, and then for the 4 1/4 inch side, you're going to go in between the 4 1/4 and the 4. It's going to be right, almost right in the center of there. So it's about 4 1/8, and then 5 3/8. I believe is what the actual measurements are. And then I used some stencils in the background, and then I used a marker all the way around the edge, just to zigzag. And then I used the rub-ons on the top, and then I used a die cut to put a sentiment on the front of it. You could hold off on the sentiments until you were ready to use the cards, and then that way you could do it specifically for what you were using the card for. But there is the first one. Here's the second one. These were pieces that were in there, and then these little splatters were some extra splatters that were too big for some of the other cards. Here's another one. All the stencils are a little bit different. This is another one that I cut pieces out and used some of the splotches from some of the other ones. Here's another one. And then the final one that we are going to work on together is this one here. So we're going to work on it together. I apologize for the shine, but you'll see it a little better. And there's going to be some extra because our card base is not that big. But it is the 49th and Market Art Options by Katie. I don't know how to say her last name, sorry, but it's a 12 by 12 Viken rub-on transfer sheet. That is what the sheet looked like. That is what the sheet looked like. You could probably even use these for something if you wanted to cut them out. I am not going to, but it tells you up here how to rub them on. It does come with a rub-on tool. It comes with this. There's lots of different ways you can do the rub-ons, but it comes with this little one. So we are going to start here with our card base, or our card front. And we're going to put this aside, and I'm going to bring in my mat here, and we are going to put this down like this, I think, and then I'm just going to tape it down lightly so that hopefully it doesn't move too much on me. And then since our flowers are pretty much all purples and greens, I've been sticking with the purple background. So I've got these two purples that are Wilted Violet and Dusty Concord, and I'm going to use the Dusty Concord first, and I'm just going to pick some areas and put some ink down. Not all over, I'm not covering the entire background. If you don't want that on there when you go into this one, I just take my paper towels and kind of rub my brush on there. I'm going to do another one here, and we're going to pick some different spots. And again, I'm not doing it all over, just in a few different spots. And then I'm going to take the tape off of here, and there's our background. I would normally wipe this down as I'm going, but since I'm doing the video, I'm going to set that aside, and I will do it in a minute. We are done with these. now we need a marker. I am just going to use a purple from this ArtSkills Blendable Markers that I got from Sam's Club. I'm going to use the royal purple one, and I'm going to use the chisel side, and I'm just going to go along the edge and squiggle my hand a little bit. If I don't make it in the right spot, I'll come back and do it again, and I'm just turning it around. One of them I did 2 layers, so if you wanted to, you could come in with the chisel on this one and just go in a little bit further with it to give you a double layer. I'm just squiggling my arm back and forth, or my hand back and forth, and then if I have a white spot, I just go back and draw a straight line over it. It will blend, you won't be able to tell. It fades back a little bit. Okay, I'm going to set this aside, and then I'm going to get our rub-on. And I'm going to set our rub-on down on the card front how I kind of want it. I don't think I want it perfectly straight. I think I kind of want it running off the side. And you can see I've got lots of extra on there. Since I'm using the backing that it came on as I rub, it's not going to stick to your surface. If you didn't have this, if I was just rubbing it on this table, it would stick to my table. So I'm going to go along the top first here, and I'm going to go along the edge of the cardstock to try and make sure that I get it cut there, so that when I start to pull back, it will stay down on here instead of trying to lift everything up off of my cardstock. So same thing here, I'm just gonna you could trim it down before you started doing the rub-ons. I don't see a purpose for that since you can just use the sheet that it came on. And I'm using my bone folder because this one isn't big enough for me and it kind of digs into my hand, but that one works just fine. You could use a credit card if you wanted to, whatever works for you to. And I'm just rubbing here. There are words in the background of the flower. If someone was looking really close, they could see that these are on there, kind of crooked. I don't know if you can kind of see them there, but I'm not too worried about it. Alright, so now I'm going to try to pull up, and I'm going to see what kind of resistance I get. And if I get any resistance from the parts on the cardstock, I'm going to stop and push down again. Missed that little guy right there. Some here that I missed. Right there. And you can pull from one side, and then if you decide, well, I want to come over here and check and see how this side's doing before I get too far over, you can come over here. I can see that I've got this. There's a spot right there. Okay, see, and these are the extra pieces that I could go put on another card if I wanted to, especially those little dots. But some of them pulled off on the edges. I'm just going to kind of go along the edges and fold them under, or use my fingernail to scrape them off. You could use, if you have a sanding block, you could use a sanding block. We're going to glue this down onto a card base, so it's not going to be a big deal. You won't be able to see too terribly much. Now we're done with this. Okay, so now I'm going to glue it down onto a card base here, and this is a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that I have trimmed down at the 5.5 and then scored at the 4.25. I'm just going to use my glue press here to put a little bit of glue around the edges. The cardstock that I'm using for the front here is not a heavyweight cardstock. It's maybe a 65-pound. It's a premium cardstock maybe from Walmart. Glue this down, just trying to eye to make sure that I have about the same amount of edge all the way around. I am not that great at getting that lined up perfectly, but, and then I'm just going to push it down. Hero Arts, and then I just use a banner, but you could use a die cut and die cut something out. You could also just stamp directly onto here. You could use a sentiment strip, whatever you want. You can also pop it up if you'd like, but I'm just going to glue it straight down. And I'm going to glue it down towards the bottom. And again, trying to make it even on both sides and straight along the bottom. So there's that one. That's a quick card, and none of these cards took me that long. Maybe maybe a half hour for all of them. The rubbing was the longest part, so if you were to use your die press or your cutting machine or something like that to help you get those images on there a little faster, that would make the whole process go a little bit faster. But 6 cards made with 1 sheet of 12x12 rub-ons and alcohol marker to go along the sides of it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'd love to see what you guys make, especially if you've gotten some of those mystery boxes that have had some of these larger rub-ons in them and you're not really sure what to do with them. This is a great way to just trim them up and stick them on a card. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Now go out there and craft something. Till next time, bye.